Welcome to Guest Talks with Tracy Arbon, bringing you special guest interviews from musictalks.xyz.
Welcome to Guest Talks. I'm Tracy Arbon from Music Talks, and we have a treat for you. We have a musician who is saxophonist, I can't say that, guitarist, amongst other things that I think he plays as well, from Pink Floyd, Supertramp and Toto. Plus, he's a technologist and entrepreneur. He has produced projects for the likes of Rolling Stones, Bon Jovi, Janet Jackson, and the list goes on. Welcome to Guest Talks, Scott Page. Hi, Scott.
Yay! Thank you
Applause
for the very nice intro. That was very nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. It's so great to have you on, and I feel really honoured that you're having a chat with me.
Thank you very much. No, I'm honored. Thank you. Really appreciate being here. It's fun.
Yeah, no, we like to, get some, chat about all sorts of things here. There's no real limits, I guess.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
and, I like the fact that it's Australia, right? Because I actually had one of the top 5 days of my life in Australia. So I love Australia.
Oh,
been there
really?
And, yeah.
Oh,
we were there. Yep. We were there with Pink Floyd. The story goes like this. We were over there with Pink Floyd during the 200th anniversary of Australia, when you had that, that massive day. It was like a whole week of celebration, but that 200th anniversary. And I remember I was out on a tall ship in the middle of, in the harbor, and it was so festive. There was so many boats and people on paddle boards, and it was just one of the most intense days I think I'd ever imagined in my life. And it actually goes down one of the 5 most incredible days of my life was that day in Australia. We were out doing a Floyd tour at the time, and we just happened to be there during that period of time. But yeah, I love Australia. Yeah. I had a great time there.
We party hard, play hard, yeah.
Oh, yeah, big time. Big time. And I got to actually hold at the time, I think it was Maggie, which was the official koala bear for the state. I guess she was the mascot. So I got to hold Maggie. There you go.
Oh, my gosh.
That's my Australian stories.
Well, you must have had a great memory of it, because my memory's shocking, but I won't go there. Look, it's funny, actually, you should mention about the tour that you did with Pink Floyd. I'll come back to that a little bit later, but I'd love to know, when did you first know that music was the path for you?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I grew up in a musical family. My father was a musician, and a really great musician. And he, so I was growing up since I was little. That's all I did. So when I was young, my father was playing with Judy Garland. I don't know if you remember Judy Garland.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the younger kids don't remember, but he was playing with her, and I used to travel on the train with him at 1 year old. So I was around music all my life, and grew up in that musical family. My father was always also in a band called Lawrence Welk, which was one of the very earliest television variety shows. And so I grew up on sort of television as a little kid, around it all the time. And so I was all about music, but it was funny. Music was just sort of something I kind of did. I wasn't really that interested in it. I actually, as I got into junior high school and started going into high school, I studied architecture and drawing and drafting. And I actually worked for a company at the time called, it was Audiodyne, and I was drawing exploded views. I don't know if you know those kind of things, but without computers. That's when we had to use a pen and a pencil, or a pencil and a ruler, and actually draw things. And so I used to do that. And then but I still played, and I was a trumpet player. Yeah. And I still played all the way. My dad would say, well, at least play. You can play some gigs on the weekend, make a few bucks, and, have some fun, but keep playing. So I kind of played for him. And then I ended up I got into a band with basically Jeff Beccaro and David Paich, who were the founders of Toto when we were kids. And we had a kid band called Merciful Soul Band, and we used to play we were winning every battle of the band. It was kind of a Chicago blood, sweat, and tears style band. Yeah. And I was the second trumpet player, and I was the worst guy in the band. But then what happened was we started playing so many gigs, and we're winning all these battle of the bands and everything, and I finally realized I was sitting in a in a little room drawing all day, drinking coffee, and then over here I'm playing gigs, and there was a lot of girls in that front row. So I said, I'm going to be a musician. It's a much better job.
Oh gosh.
So that's the truth. I just said, this is much more fun. So then I became a fanatic and just started practicing like crazy and studying music. And then I took my drafting skills, and because I wasn't good enough to get music gigs really at that time, while I was studying, but I had a real good hand of drafting, so I took up music copying.
Right.
In those days, we actually had to use a pen again, special kinds of pens, and we'd write out the score. The conductor would hand you a full, a giant score, and you'd have to go write out the first trumpet part, the second trumpet part. You have to write all these things out by hand. So I did that to make a living while I was studying at that time, and that's really how I got into the music business.
Right. All for the girls, huh?
For the girls, yep, that was it. It's amazing how that works.
Yes, a little enticing goes a long way.
Yeah, that was much more fun when I was a kid. I'll tell you, sitting in that room drinking coffee by myself or on the bandstand was much better.
Oh dear! Now you mentioned Toto. You're also involved with Supertramp, the famous Last Words tour, which ended up, and you joining Supertramp to plan some of their, the Brother Where You Bound album and tour, Free as a Bird. Am I right with that? But you're also still working with Toto at the same time. Is that right?
Well, not really. Was out with Toto. We toured and we did that, and then I came back, and there was a period of time in between. Then I got called I got involved in playing in Supertramp, which was funny. It was actually a guy that used to come sit at the club. I used to play this club called what was it called? Anyway, I can't remember. It was a small club in the Valley here in Los Angeles. Right. And there was a guy that used to sit back in the back of the room. He'd be there every week. We played there every, Friday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We were like kind of that night house band. He'd always be sitting there drinking a beer. Mm-hmm. Finally, I find out later he was the drummer in Supertramp, and then he called me to come play on the record audition for the band, and I ended up staying with the band for quite a while. We played for quite a few years, and it was one of my most fun jobs that I'd ever worked on, and in bands. A great group of people, just really, really wonderful, and it was a great ride.
Yeah,
for sure. So
Wow. And then after that, you were approached by David Gilmour to join Pink Floyd, and that saw you touring with Pink Floyd for several years before you made the move to entrepreneurship. But with the Memory Lapse of Reason tour, you were on. It was that tour, wasn't it? That was the first tour.
That was the one. Momentary Lapse of Reason and Delicate Sound of Thunder. Those two tours, basically back to back. We kind of continued on. We did two things. Yeah, right. It was like almost 2 years on the road.
Yeah, that's just huge. The Momentary Lapse of Reason tour has been recognised as one of the greatest concerts many people have actually seen, including my partner, who told me just before I went to come on here and talk to you. He said it was the best concert he has ever seen to date. Wow. How do you see that tour as a standout to you amongst other tours that you've done?
Well, Pink Floyd was clearly one of the probably most. It was a really grand tour. Their whole thing is, like Dave. I said, what about it? He says, just make it grand and they will come. And they did. I mean, it was amazing. I remember when we were rehearsing in Toronto, we were rehearsing out on the tarmac, actually at the airport in an airplane hangar. And they used to have to shuttle us out in between the 747s to get us out to the rehearsal space. And I remember sitting out there, and there were the pigs were floating, the beds were flying, we had spaceships, and I would sit there and 747s would be going by, and I'm looking at this thing because it was so massive, because I hadn't done a tour that was that big. Supertramp was big, but this was pretty monstrous as far as, just show and everything, because they always really take it over the top with the lights and the whole sound and everything that they do. They really make it a spectacle. So it was a really big tour. I mean, I don't remember how many people were traveling. I remember seeing, laminate passes that had like 150. Their number was 150, right? So we were traveling with this massive thing, just tons and tons of semi trucks carrying this thing around. Wow! So it was definitely quite a tour. and we did some really incredible gigs. Australia was fantastic. We'd had some great shows there, and that was a lot of fun.
How much is involved, like when you're traveling and you have to take everything across the water, so to speak?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just mammoth. That's just...
Oh, yeah, it's a big deal, moving all that equipment around. I mean, it's, we're off, obviously, at that time. Somebody else is taking care of all that stuff. We have to show up. I mean, it's so funny. I get all these musicians, it must be really tough to be out there on the road. And I'm going, staying in 5-star hotels, working like 3 nights a week, drinking fine wines and hanging out. It's really rough. People carrying your bags around, all that kind of stuff. So it's really funny. Those kind of tours are really, they're a lot of fun in the sense that, you get to be pretty mindless out there.
Well, when you're at that stage, when you're in that stage of a career, it's great, but I guess when those, indie artists that are starting up, that's tough,
It's a whole different game, especially today. The model has shifted so much as far as, how artists make money and what they do. You can't sell music anymore.
No.
So you got to figure out what you're going to sell. And really the two things you can sell is the relationship and an experience.
Yes.
So those are the two things you got to really work on as an artist today. But it's a totally different, touring experience these days. And, all these things now, the clubs want you to bring the audience. You have to, you don't get paid unless you... it's pay for play. It's crazy.
Yeah. You have to pay to actually be there yourself as a band.
That's it.
Which is, very, very hard. So before I do ask about your business ventures, you've mentioned about, what it's like to be part of Pink Floyd, but from that point, what was it that sparked your interest to go into business?
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, I was when I was a kid. I don't know why I did this, but I was young though. I remember 10, 11, 12. I said, I'm going to do 3 things in my life. I'm going to do music, and then I'm going to get into business, and then I'm going to do documentaries. I don't know why I said that. I wanted to do that. Yeah. So, I had a really lucky to have the business, have the music career. But it was interesting because Dave, I figured I'm going on the road for 2 years. I'm going to make the most out of this. I'm going to use it as a time to study because there's a lot of time to, when you're flying or you're on the bus or wherever you are and days off and all that. So I started studying business and just reading a lot of business books. And while I was out on the road, and I actually remember when Dave Gilmour would come on, what are you reading? I'd say, I'm reading Tom Peters' In Search of Excellence, right? Some great business book. And he's like, okay, so why? I said, well, I'm gonna go have me a business, Dave. And he'd kind of chuckle, because like most musicians aren't really business-minded people that would go out and kind of do business. Yeah. So I always remembered that because I said, okay, that was my incentive to go, okay, Dave, I'm going to show you. I'm going to go build me a business, right? And then lo and behold, about 18 months after we left there, I started a company called Seventh Level. Bob Ezrin, who was the producer of Pink Floyd, joined me and started this company and, actually took it public.
Right.
Actually wasn't, I take that back. It wasn't 2 years. It was about, maybe 2.5 years. And then 18 months after we started it, the company went public and we were a NASDAQ company. And so I actually, been a serial entrepreneur since then. I've started 5 companies and I'm on my 5th one right now.
So okay. I want to know this for myself because I love business. I love the whole entrepreneur thing. I've got all these ideas as well. I don't know if this will make it on the chat, but I am so driven into wanting to do so many things. But of course, I've realized that you do have to focus first on one thing at a time.
Absolutely.
Just through mistakes in the past few years that I've made and learnt from it. And I'm glad I did because I'm one of these people that it's not that I don't like to be told what to do. I like to experience those mistakes, and I find that I learn so much better, and it sticks with me. But
so true.
Yeah, but when you first had this idea of starting a business, did you have any idea what that business would be?
Actually, I did not at the time. I take that back. I started. I realized I wanted to be in the production and I loved production and producing and that whole thing. So my first company was called Walt Tucker, and it was an audio video post-production house. Plus, I had a graphics merchandising business. So we actually made merchandise, and my company, we did merchandise for Yamaha and the Guitar Centers and, a lot of different folks like that. Right. And then I did a lot of the work which you were talking about, where we produced a lot of the audio and stuff for, these long form videos for the Rolling Stones, Janet Jackson, Garth Brooks, right. John Bon Jovi. We ran all those things through our production facility there. Obviously, there's a lot of different people that worked on those things. But I wanted to go into that space. Because I wanted it to be in a creative space. And then for me, what happened was I saw the whole CD-ROM technology come along, and I just got so intrigued with that whole idea, because I had at the studio that I had at my facility, where I had the post-production and full studio, I developed this thing called EarMax, and this idea called visual sound, because I really love the idea of marrying sound and picture together. So we created a whole kind of a new system for recording in a wave. Had zooming microphones, where they were connected through MIDI to the camera. So when the camera would zoom in, I'd have the guys wear little lavalier mics, and it would pick up that sound and bring it up. The whole idea of making the sound and picture work really together. So if you're 5 feet from somebody, it sounds like you're right there, as opposed to the back of the room is different than. So that whole idea. So I really was in the pioneering experimentation area of that sound and picture. And then when I saw computers come along, I said, wow, 2 stereo speakers, you're 18 inches from the computer. It's the perfect space for this, this sort of, immersive audio kind of experience, we'll call it. And so I built the facility to do that. And that was a big part of what I was doing in that space. So that was my first area in the production side of it. So I saw technology come along, and I ended up getting into the cyberpunk scene, which was at the time I was going to all these guys' houses that were like in garages, all these computer guys, hacking away at writing code and making stuff. And I kind of befriended all those guys. And then I ended up going to I did my first CD-ROM with a company called ProSonus, and it was it was called Music Bytes. Yep. And Music Bytes was music for computer presentations. So the idea of, in those days, if you had a computer, you were doing a PowerPoint presentation. There was no real music or any audio you could put in. So we designed this disc for that, with all the different types of wave files, 22K, 44K files, all the stuff that would work with computers. And I actually put together a whole all-star band kind of thing. I had, the Tower Power horns, and, the Supertramp guys, and, the Toto guys. All my friends came and played on this thing. So it was the first time it was really a high-end audio experience kind of content for these computers and stuff, for these computer users. And I basically just saw my future in that. And we were pitching this disc at Comdex, which was a big trade show. Mm-hmm. And I ended up looking across the room, and I said, what is that on the screen? I saw this computer monitor, and I walked up to it, and it was a children's title called Just Grandma and Me. And it was the first time I'd seen anybody click on something and the action would happen. Right. Like you click on this object and it would move. And I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So I dove wholeheartedly into the whole technology space. Like I said, I was hanging out in the punk scene with all the cyberpunk scene with all these computer guys. And that's where I was hanging out with Timothy Leary, if you remember him, and all of those kind of wild folks back in the days. And we were really early on in this whole, kind of early computer days. So my whole thing has been in tech. And so my kind of role over the last, 20-something, 30 years, I've been focused as that kind of bridge between a technologist and an artist. So everything I've done technology-wise has got a little bit of that spin to it, the companies that I have, so that there's some production, and at the same time there's tech involved too. Okay, so I gather you just learn from your friends about how to work, all the technology, or did you study anything? I mean, it was quite new back then, so. Oh, it was very new. So just playing with it. Yeah, it was more. Well, it was more about. Remember the whole game. I think with anybody and anything, if there's any aspiring artists out there, the key is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And so I was lucky, because with Pink Floyd, banner, and we were at that time, we were on one of the biggest tours in history, right? Everybody would talk to me. So it was great. I had that door opener that would get in. So as I was going to these trade shows and hanging out with these tech guys, they're all introducing me to different people. So I just started getting into the community. And that's really an important part. I remember it's all about networking and finding the right people to hang out with. So I started going to just these events, starting to meet people, and they would, introduce you to somebody else. You'd learn a little bit more. And then by just being involved in some products. And so actually during that time when I was at Comdex and we were basically demoing our Music Bites product, it was myself and Jeff Baxter from the Doobie Brothers. I remember Jeff. Right. He was in the band. And me and him did this thing together. We were there promoting it. And I ended up meeting a gentleman by the name of George Grayson, who at the time was running the 20th largest software company in the country. Wow. And I was very lucky. He was a major Pink Floyd fan. So we hit it off. We hit it off big time, and we started talking more. Yeah. And I showed him the music thing that I did, and he said, I want to do that for my company. We need an audio library for micrographics. So I ended up building one with him. And so through that process, I started learning more about what you can do and can't do. Then we put together a project called I put something together I called the Grand Scientific Musical Theater, where we did for 16,000 people at the Thomas Mack Arena in Las Vegas, where I basically traveled for a whole year, traveling the country, finding the latest technology, bringing all these people together and marrying it with Hollywood. And we were raising money for the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And we raised $1 million that night at that event. But we had all the very first circular video walls, 3D audio in arena, the first talking real-time head with Charles Fleischer, who was the voice of Roger Rabbit, was hosting this giant variety show. And we had Tower of Power, John Anderson from Cirque du Soleil, Todd Rundgren, the Turtles. We had with the Nevada Symphony Orchestra and John Anderson singing. I had a guy painting real time in Japan and streaming it over. And you think in 1992, that was a big deal, streaming some, graphics. So it was a whole technology thing. And from that, we just basically saw the future. And George came back to me and came in and said, hey, I want to buy your company. Let's go. I want to go. Let's start this. Let's get into this multimedia thing. It's great. Let's go. And he went back to his board. They said, no, they're not going to do it. And so he said, hey, I started this company and nobody's going to tell me. So he quit his own company and said, let's go. And he threw in the first $1 million, and the next thing we're offering tech. And so I was that creative guy trying to make sure there was a lot of soul in that stuff, because that was the problem. Most of the content that was being made at that time was being made by computer programmers, which many of them aren't really, focused on the soulfulness of a piece of content. They're more, it's black and white, on or off. So I kind of bridged that gap. And luckily the CTO in our company was a really good piano player. So it was great because I could describe things to him and he would understand it from a musical point of view. And then he could, turn it into, code. He would know how to talk to the engineers. So going through that project, the first one we did was called Toonland. And it was, I'm really proud of this one. It was the world's first interactive cartoon. And it was really early stage. And it ran in those days because everything was running under DOS. And this is when Windows was just coming on board. And we actually wrote an engine that we called Top Gun that would run all this animation on Windows. And it was a pretty big deal at the time. Yeah. And we were able to take a dancing broom. I had this little animated dancing broom that I could show as a demonstration that we could make animation really work on Windows on these machines. And we were able to take the company public on that.
Right.
That dancing broom. And then from there, we made that title, and then we did that title became, we're 11 million units sold. And it was a big hit at the time. And Bill Gates used to hold up our product and say, look, you can do what you can do on Windows, right?
Wow.
Which was crazy in those days because we were running on 386 25 megahertz machines with 4 meg of RAM, which was like nothing, right? Those are the days, you buy a hard drive, you get 2 gig hard drive for $800. And now I bought a 6 terabyte drive the other day for $300.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
It is absolutely mad. But back then, hey, we thought it was good.
So I ended up living with a lot of, all these engineers. And that's how I really learned, was in the space, because I'd say, hey, I want to do this. And they say, sorry, you can't do that.
Right. Okay.
We got to do this. So I learned all the little tricks and the things that we could do and the ins and outs. But that was really by just eating, drink, sleeping, and living kind of with the engineers as we built out our products.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's just amazing. So, the business, other than that, from that point, the other business ventures you've done so much. I just don't know where to start. Yeah.
I'm old.
Sorry?
That's the problem. I'm old. I've
You're
been doing it a long time.
You're an achiever. You're a go-getter. It's really interesting what you said about networking with people as well. I'm really, I'm kind of cautious about, there's this social media it's just so amazing. Now we were talking about that earlier before we came on, and although there's a lot of people that like just to talk, but they, it's hard to know who to believe, as well. So there's a lot of people that talk. I like to listen a lot, usually. But if I do have an idea, I will. I'm really careful now not to mention the ideas, because I've had quite a few stolen. So,
well, I
see
have something
it
to
up
say
on the
about
net, and
that.
I've gone, damn. I'm not saying.
Well, here's the thing. I come from a little bit different place. It's one thing. The idea is they're floating around. The execution is key. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because I teach business startup to a variety of artists, and there's actually a site called founders.org. And it's a site that you can go into, and it's like let's say you're starting a company, and there's like 4 or 5 people in the company, and everybody's like, the guy has the idea, and he goes, oh, I got this idea, and I'm going to start it, and pulls people together. And in there's a tool that you can say, you go through and says, how do I divide up the company? Who gets what? Right? What percentage of the company should go to who? Right. And what's interesting is when you go through that, you'll realize that the person that came up with the idea only gets 5% of the company. Right. Yeah. Because it's the idea. Yeah. The implementation. Who's there every day? Who's putting money in? Who's working for them? That outweighs the idea. So you got to be careful. I'm not as worried about ideas anymore, because very few people can actually go execute on them, because it's hard once you get started, right? Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I have noticed that I might mention something in a chat, and next thing, the following week, someone's got it up. But it's like, how are they going to? I mean, for me, it will take a long time to really execute the actual whole idea. It's not just a matter about just placing it up there. It's like you say, you've got to work on it. So I've got a lot of work. Yep. I've got a lot of things sitting in boxes at the moment, because Music Talks is my baby at the moment, and I'm hoping to sort of expand on this. Look, we were also talking about. Actually, I want to talk about something else. The streaming. We're talking about streaming and everything streaming. And quite recently, we've now noticed that Apple are taking on head-on with Netflix. Yep. Now, I have a question for you. I would love to know your thoughts. A lot of people are happy to pay for watching a movie on Netflix. Binge watch and whatever. Yet, I don't know. I see streaming and music very different to how people value a movie into how they value music. What are your thoughts on that? Like, why isn't it really working, I guess, for especially the indie artists, for streaming? Why do you think? Oh, it's simple. Here's why. Here, think about it for a second. If you have if you've got a song and you play it on the radio, there's chances, hundreds of thousands, a million people could hear it, right? At one shot. I played it once, and that amount of people heard it, right? On a streaming service, you have to have, in order to make like roughly $5,000 on stream, you have to get 1 million streams. That means 1 million people have to stream your music, right? And you're going to make $5,000. Well, I think I just read an article not so long ago. They said that like on Spotify, roughly only 2%, 3% of the entire catalog of Spotify hits 1 million streams. right? It's really all the other people. So it's very difficult for independent artists to get out there. Second of all, why it's not working is because it's the playlist.
Yeah.
And remember, the labels own the streaming services.
Yes. Yes.
And so they own the streaming services. So that means that their artists are going to get preferential.
Yeah.
And it's the new, basically the payola. Back in the day, you used to have to go do things to get the record guy to go play it at the record station. You know, so it was a little payola, a little money under the table, or, you know, some drugs or whatever they needed to do to kind of get somebody to play your record. And then a bunch of people hit it and you start getting requests and it starts going. In this game, you can't make any money in streaming. Even the big artists that are streaming, it's really not that much when you think about the amount of streams that they're getting. Their money is now more in the live performance, in, you know, different relationship things, merchandise, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the independent artist, the small guy that's trying to break out, it's like, holy cow, I can't compete. I can't go get on those Spotify playlists. I can't pay the money because, you know, there's people you can get on these playlists. You got to go write a $40,000 check. Right. So it's like not going to happen. That's not happening very, very often. Right. So that's the difficult part. And but now saying that, what I will say is this is the greatest time in history for the independent artist, because even back in the day when you heard all the stories, it was just a handful of people that would have access to getting a record deal. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There was just no way you were going to get a record deal, and getting in the studio was going to cost, you know, $200 an hour. Yes. To rent the studio. So it took labels and money. So the independent guy couldn't make it happen anyway. Right. Yeah. But I think the big difference for the independent is back then, I mean, I could go work enough playing clubs and doing gigs that I could pay my rent, you know, just I could make, you know, I could go play a gig and make, you know, $50 to $100 for the night. And have, you know, do that 5 nights, 6 nights a week, and, you know, make a couple grand a month. And my house payment was $300, and you know, all these things. So, you know, you made $1,200 a month. You could actually live, so you could make it as an independent musician. That's gone away, and that's tough. But what I will say is people need to realize that social media isn't just kind of a marketing tool. It's your business now. And the power of what the artist can do today, it's all about whoever owns the audience wins. And it doesn't take that much audience to start being valuable. In other words, there's a model called the 1,000 True Fans. And Kevin Kelly from, I think it was from Wired or one of those magazines, he was the one that came up with that concept, where a true fan is somebody that will spend $100 a year on you. Yes. If I have 1,000 of those fans, there's my first $100,000 in revenue. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So the idea is how do I find those super fans, those people, and actually build a relationship? So social media now allows you to do that. And the thing that I teach a course called, that whole thing called SPACE, which is Story, Plan, Army, Conversion, Education. It's a formula for artists to build, how to build a sustainable business and the things that you need to do. And so part of this is, we also know we have access to data, which we never had before. Now the artist has data, and we can find and target specific people that care about what you do and stuff. That's why I tell people the story is so critical part of any artist, because how do you rise above the noise? Yes. And I try to explain to them, it's not the story like, hey, I'm a guitar player, I'm from Cincinnati, I grew up doing this. But nobody cares about that story. The story I'm talking about is, what do you stand for? And the first question I ask every artist is, what problem do you solve? And they're like, what do you mean solve? And, you know, I like to smoke fatties and write songs, right? And it's like, you know, what is that? So the model is shifted so that you have to start thinking about how to be a business. You're a startup, and you have to learn to make the business part of it just as much art as the music part of it. They go hand in hand. And so when we get back to that idea of the story, why I say the story and what purpose, what purpose, what are you doing? What do you stand for? And the reason I say that, so, you know, I use, like, I say, if an artist says, I don't know what, I don't have anything, I don't really know. I say, go look at the 17 sustainable goals from the UN. Is it clean water? Is it whatever? Find something you're passionate about. And it could be virtually anything. and then you have something else to talk about. I'm going out to, help some organizations do something, and I'm going to raise money, and we're going to do this. Now I have something a purpose.
Yes.
Because once you have the story, and it's kind of what you're saying, you can use those words, keywords, and then a growth hacker, somebody can go out and find people that care about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
that you're putting your value proposition directly in front of the people that care.
Yeah.
That's the big difference now. So from an artist point of view, they got to think differently and know that the music is really their secret power that gets to start to build the relationships with the fans.
Yes.
Right.
I agree. Yeah.
And here's the other thing that's going on that's massive right now. There is a massive shift in social media going on. And this is a big one. It's not about how many followers you have anymore.
No.
Nobody cares.
No.
You can't get any organic reach. That's gone.
No.
You got to pay for, you got to pay ads. You got to get out there. But more importantly is that it's now we're moving into the conversation, the engagement and experience period of time.
Yes.
We're moving to hives. So you have to, in order to survive, you got to build a hive. And what I mean by that is it's a smaller group of people, but they're highly engaged in what you're doing.
Yes.
So the 1,000 true fan model starts making sense. So in my model, it's like I tell all the artists, let's stop trying to get out everywhere. Let's go really small and very targeted and go after the super fan, because the super fan is somebody that we know it will basically, 1 to 3% of your audience is going to generate 60% of your money, your revenue.
Yes.
And I tell artists too that is it a business or is it a hobby?
Yeah. I mean, your story isn't about, I just like to play music. I mean,
nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
You got to have something of value and purpose. So what purpose do you have? And it's actually, that helps put the pieces together. And then you have to start thinking about, how do I reach out to those fans? But it's really about the engagement and being close. So today, the real juice is in the DMs, the direct messages, and being able to connect with people directly and keeping that conversation going, creating value for them.
Yeah, and this is something I've actually had a battle with, and I'm constantly, saying to so many artists, especially on Twitter, it's not very personal either, or not very professional. It's just, hey, check out my music, here's my link, and it's like it kind of turns me off. It's like, I know more of that. I mean, I get so many people sending me links. Here, download my album, And I said, I got so much music, I can't even stand it anymore. I'm inundated with music. Because now anybody that has, what is it? What's the app? The Apple app, GarageBand, can be in the music business, right? So everybody's in the music business now. And everybody's sending stuff to everybody. And you got machines making stuff. So we've gotten to that point where it's just saturation. And so what is the value you bring to the party? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's where an artist. But if you figure that out, this is direct to consumer. Yeah. No middleman. Yeah. Boom. It's like it's an incredible way. And there's artists that are, they're cleaning up. And a lot of them don't want to go to labels anymore. I mean, even though labels today are making more money in the music business than they ever had, but it's not on new artists. It's all on catalog. Yeah. Drake, from my point of view, Drake was the last guy to get through the system. He was the last guy to kind of fall into the major label kind of place. Because, like I said, the game has completely shifted. It's now, how do I vie for attention? And, you can't make enough off of streaming. So how do I create things that are going to be unique to get people to come, and what will they write a check for? And right now we're also moving into subscription product model. That subscriptions are taking off like crazy. But it has to be a subscription of something people care about. That's why you got to create value. And the other thing is fans today, what they're looking for, what you are as an artist, you're a media network and you're a lifestyle. Because what they want to get to know your lifestyle. They want to be part of your lifestyle. That's who you are, and that's where the relationship building goes in, and that's how you attract those specific people. And then it's learning how to convert them into paying customers. Yeah. But you have to think outside the box. You have to be a media company now, John, just a musician. Yeah. There's video and content you got to produce every day, and So you really do have to make that decision, and that, I guess, at the beginning stages is, are you just doing it for a hobby, as you say? Are you just going to put it out there and just that's it? Or are you going to make this as your business? And how then, I mean, a lot of people say, well, how do I do that? I don't have any money to make it into a business. Well, everybody starts like that.
That's right.
So, it's never easy as a startup. And,
nope.
And we've all been there. So,
and that's why I teach. One of the things that I also teach is I come out of the lean startup principle world. Lean startup is a process that's a set of principles that Silicon Valley has been focused on. And the whole idea of a lean startup model is to test and validate and not run out of resources. Mm-hmm. And always do the smallest thing you can do that will get you traction, give you the biggest bang for your buck. So today when I hear an artist say, I'm going to go out and make an album, so they're going to go spend 6 months making an album, and nobody cares about an album anymore.
No, well, nobody cares about anybody saying, oh, I've just made a record. It's not as big as it used to be 30 years ago.
No, because everybody's making records.
Yeah, it's just...
I'll go make you an album tonight, right, on my phone, on my cell phone. Right?
I mean, if I'm going to make an album, it's going to be something incredible that is going to be spoken about because of, various reasons, not just for the sake of making an album, just because I like music.
Yeah. And, we're like I said, we're now moving into a place where the experience really matters. And that's really where myself and my company Think Experience is living. That's the area we live in because we see that's where the value is and that's where the market's going. Right. Is creating a unique experience, and that's why Think is an immersive entertainment company, because we're looking at where is the market, who will write a check for what, and so we now know through experimentation that in testing and validating model that we see now where people will come and pay and what they'll pay for, and that's kind of what we're doing with our Think, because we're doing these shows. We're doing a Think, our company's Think Experience, and we're doing a Think Floyd experience right now. So we're doing Pink Floyd in a 360-degree immersive visual dome.
Right.
And inside that dome, it's like you're watching Pink Floyd, and it's like you're in a VR, a virtual reality experience. And it's selling out. We've done it 13 times. We've sold all 13 shows out.
Wow.
And what's really interesting is everybody that comes, I'm having a repeat business is incredible. I've had some people that keep coming to all 13 shows, because the experience is so incredible. So we now know creating an experience, mashing together this unique visual thing along with this, Pink Floyd music, put into a different way of experiencing it. People are eating it up like crazy.
Right. And so you're doing this now, are you?
Right now, yeah, this is our whole thing right now. Is we're doing Think Floyd. We're looking at doing Think Hendrix later, and maybe Think Bowie. But right now, we're doing Think Floyd with a great band. I was able to pull together a bunch of my favorite musicians: Steve Perkins from Jane's Addiction, and Kenny Olson from Kid Rock's band, and Norwood Fisher from Fishbone, and myself, and Roberta, who was out singing with us on Floyd, she's on there. And then we have a great bunch of musicians, and we bring all-star guys in, and we're doing this crazy cool Floyd thing in the middle of this 360 dome, which is just, it's the most unique concert experience you'd ever had. So for us, I just realized that we're going into the experiential world. Why? Because I'm looking at pop-ups. Again, I follow technology heavily because this market's moving so fast. Every 90 days, it's shifting. That's why I tell artists, you've got to go to school every day. What I mean by that, you got to get up and start reading blogs and start learning about where the market's going, and then you got to figure out how you're going to enter the market and what's going to give you a unique twist, and how are you going to build your brand and build your whole thing. And that's, again, learning what's working and what's not working. So you have to
almost also predicting. Yeah. And trying to get ahead of the game too, which is really, really, easier said than done. But
it's not easy. But that's why I'm saying it's you got to got to get up and got to take this seriously. You got to get up and go to work every day. That's what I try to tell artists. You got to get up and go to work every day. And 50% of your time you're spending with your audience online, and the other 50% you're out making music.
Yeah. So so where is this taking place? This dome
we're doing
experience.
So the dome experience we're doing right now is in downtown Los Angeles at a place called Wisdome, and it's an immersive theme park. I mean, immersive park, kind of an art park kind of an idea. And so we decided, like, say, let's see what we could do in this type of an environment and see if we could build something that makes sense. So we're doing it there. And it's been incredible. And it's really funny. What's so interesting about it, since we're immersed in the middle of it, the band is like part of the audience too. So instead of being like the band facing out, playing out, and just looking at the audience and all the visuals happening behind you, I look out and I'm looking at the visuals just like everybody else. We're all immersed in this 360-degree space, and it's just incredible energy that happens in that room. It's wild. It's really wild.
Oh, wow.
Because the dome has its own acoustics. Mm-hmm.
Are you planning on taking that somewhere else as well?
Well, yes, we are. We're actually in the midst of designing two 53-foot trucks that will house a whole digital experience, and will then travel with some traveling domes. I don't know if you know about Cirque du Soleil in Australia. Okay, so Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, I saw them.
Yeah, so that's their whole thing. Is when they started out, they used to have these tents. They'd come into a town, and they may stay there a month or two, right, in one spot. So it's kind of location. You're at a location and you pick it up, move. So that's part of our business model, is really kind of putting together that Cirque du Soleil meets TED Talks. So we got information and content. There's a whole educational piece that ties into what we're doing and how we're kind of mashing all these things together. And that's one of the things I would tell, if there's artists out there. It's like, for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to go start my own. If I'm going to go start, I want to go get my music out there. It's very difficult to get your own music out there because people don't know it. But there's so many great things that are already there that you can cover, you can mash together. You might take, some cool Rolling Stone song or something and do it in a totally different way, and then mash it with some great visual product, like might be like Mad Men or something, and you're like, whoa, what did I just do? I just took two things that were skewed opposite, jammed them together, and created something new.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that's important, especially for these new artists coming up, is you don't have to sell people on the song. You've already got that. There's already audience that are around those particular things, and it allows you to, but I'm not going to use the word hijack, but it's kind of the idea is you can get into those audiences. So if your strategy is using covers and things like that to get you out there, and then you introduce your stuff, right? Because now the whole idea is getting attention.
Yes.
And if you can do it with somebody else's thing that gets it out there, that's why for me, I'm looking at it. I could have gone dome show and wrote our own music and did all that, and I'm like, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. There's incredible brands out there. There's a massive audience that already loves this, so I'm going to just twist it up and do it in a totally different way and create value for that audience that likes that kind of stuff. So I tell artists, look out there. There's so much great material out there. The goal is to start generating some revenue and getting your brand out there. You can always go back and you'll start writing your other tunes. It doesn't mean you're going to be covering or doing these things with everybody for everything. It's even with my Think band. We're writing tunes, we're doing our stuff. We're using the Pink Floyd kind of idea, and as that is kind of the hook to kind of get us in there, but we're going to do our own sets and stuff, and we add that in, and there's ways to do it, but I don't have to explain to people what it is, right? And there's so many people that love that music. Think about doing those kinds of covers where you can take something, because there's so many great songs out there, and reinvent it in your way. If it's a fast song, do it slow. If it's a slow song, maybe you do it fast, and you do it in a different way. And it was a hard, heavy metal tune, and you're going to do it as a bluegrass song. Yeah. Right? How do you come up with something people go, wow, that's cool, right? It's just trippy. And we're seeing also so many of these, like right now, the audience-wise, these tribute bands are just killing it as far as revenue. There's two of the big Floyd tribute bands are each doing over $35 million a year.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
And that's playing somebody else's music, right?
Yeah.
So learning from that is a great way to go. And I also use this example in the States. You've probably heard of the television show The Walking Dead?
Yes.
Okay, The Walking Dead. Well, a guy by the name of Chris Hardwick started a show called The Talking Dead.
Ah, okay.
And all it is he started a talk show around the Walking Dead television show that comes on right after the TV show. And he created this whole thing, and the entire audience goes over to him. He owns the audience for that show. He owns it and all this, and they actually just paid him $15 million not to leave AMC because he had so much power with the audience.
Wow.
And all he did was he saw this other thing and he created a show around it, right? And so those are ideas that people can think about as an artist, is how can I create something where I'm going to talk about something else? Because again, online with this whole idea of a lifestyle, and the worst thing you can do is me. Talk about me. Come to my show. Yeah. Come to my show. Yeah. Buy my record. I'm going to do this. Pay me. All this stuff. Yeah. Nobody cares.
No, they just scroll right past it.
Scroll right past that stuff, and you understand why. But if you're doing something, solving a problem, or you're behind something that people care about, now I have something to talk about.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it gives it such much more of a thing. And so for us, as our company, as Think, we're basically building our model is we're building a platform. I'm come out of the tech world, right? So we're building the whole offline, which means the live events.
Yeah.
And there's a whole technology stack that's needed in a process that needs to run that. And then we also have a whole mobile messaging and media network, an online audience management system plugged into all that. So we're creating the entire stack, because that's what it takes. People come to your shows. I need to move them onto the platform. I need the conversation going on. I need to be able to sell them merch and products. So it's really a combination of all these pieces that you're putting together. Right. So artists need to, like I said, they need to start studying this stuff. I know their heads are spinning as I'm talking right now, but that's why the whole idea of lean startup is so important, to learn those principles, because you're going to say, I'm not going to do all these. I'm going to do the smallest thing I can. What is that? And I'm going to test to see if people really care about that. And so I'll throw this out as another one, part of my whole space, story, plan, army, conversion. The plan part, I use there's a site called leanstack.com, leanstack, STACK.com. And on there's a thing called the Lean Canvas. And the Lean Canvas is a one-page business plan. It's one page.
Right.
There's like 9 questions on it. And you go in there, and the first thing you do is you take 20 minutes. That's the rule, is 20 minutes to fill it out.
Okay.
From that, now the important part of that is it's going to ask you questions. You're like going to go, huh? What do I say there? Like, it's going to have questions like, again, what problem are you solving? What's your unique value proposition? Who's your early adopters? All those questions, which you could say, who are your super fans? What's your unique value proposition, is like, what makes you unique as an artist, right? What makes it unique? And your unique value proposition might be, is I have access to all these, massive thought leaders that can get my music out there. That's a unique value to me as a thing. I have that way to get my stuff out there. So you fill out the Lean Canvas and you go through it, and it's a process. You iterate on it. Now, and you keep changing and you keep working on it. Now, the key to that is it doesn't only tell you what you're going to do. More importantly, it's going to tell you what you're not going to do.
Right. Okay.
Because go ahead.
No, I'll make sure I grab these links, and I'll put them also with the podcast on our page too, so artists can check them out.
So for people that want to learn that, and it's something for you too to look at if there's some ideas you have, and it's just a really good way to make you walk through the process of making sure what you're doing is the right thing you're going to do.
Yeah.
Because I see so many artists wasting so much time on things that if they really want a business and get their thing rolling, they're putting their attention in the wrong place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, again, it's like then the whole idea of conversion, it's like you need to learn how conversion funnel works. And a conversion funnel is just basically, hey, I meet somebody the first time. First thing I get from this, I get their email address, goes into the thing. I've got a system set up on my MailChip. It sends them an email out and says, hey, thank you very much. Here's a little gift. Here's a link to my song and stuff. And then you have a drip system, all these types of things. And how do I convert people? And one of the areas I see artists drop the ball all the time, which is really crazy, is they do live events, and they're not using those live events to really take that opportunity to bring the artist, get the fans in their database so they can communicate with them afterwards. Because there's a thing called the 7 levels of conversion, conversation and conversion. And it starts out at the bottom. The worst thing is just an advertisement. You're just dropping an ad out there. You don't know where it's going. You're throwing. Next is a direct mail piece. Well, that's a little better. as you're going up
Yep.
the pyramid, because at least it's directed to something, right?
Yeah.
And then, you've got the social media, I believe it is at the bottom, because it's really not for converting. It's a great place to talk, but to really convert somebody, it's good. And then the next one is it's like a phone call. And then the top two is really a live event and a one-on-one. So if I have a one-on-one with a person, my chances of getting them to buy into what my offer or what I'm doing is much better. Second is a live event. Well, artists, they play live events and they're with people all the time. So they have the number one opportunity to be able to get them into the database and start creating the conversation and moving these people through it. So artists out there, figure out a strategy to get people in your database.
Yeah. Yes.
That's really critical. Yep.
So is this something that you also mentor artists, or do you still mentor artists?
I do mentor artists, and I work with a couple of them. I do it more. It's not a business or anything. I do it to help more. And I've been working with a great artist that I really love. Her name is Shalita Burke. And Shalita is very interesting because she's kind of a unique talent because she's an incredible technologist. She's a data scientist and a senior software engineer by the time she was 19 years old, working out of Microsoft. But she's an incredible singer-songwriter, like incredible, so unique. She was the keynote speaker at South by Southwest, not this year, last year. She was there this year, spoke on 3 panels and, played there a bunch of times. She was just a speaker at Social Media World last week, and she was just in Forbes magazine, the cover of Music Connection. She's one of those really unique artists that is figuring out both sides of the game.
Yes.
Right. She understands the net, how to build audience and grow that audience and actually do that. And at the same time, she's making great music. Yeah. Incredible. So I've been helping her, and she's, again, it's unique in the sense that she has that kind of mind, right? Yeah. She's like incredible computer person, understanding. I mean, she understands AI, she's had running bots for years. And so she's got that thing. But as an artist, she's incredible. So I see her kind of being somebody that'll really help lead the charge, right? Kind of to the new music space, right? Where how do you make money? Because she launched her last record on the blockchain, and she did something. The other night I went to see her, and she did something. Check this out. This is kind of fun. So she said, "Okay, everybody, we're all. I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to have everybody. The first words that come into your head. We're going to write a song together, right?" And then everybody, we're going to write this song is I'm going to get everybody's name, and we're going to build a smart contract on top of the blockchain. So if any money's ever made off this song, everybody gets paid. Right. So it was really interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with the blockchain. It's kind of what cryptocurrency stuff, but the blockchain is one of those most disruptive technologies since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, it's crazy what that actually means. But here she's an artist kind of leading the ground. They wrote this cool song in the club during the show, and that's her whole thing is everybody's going to be on the blockchain, and a smart contract is made, and boom, if anything happens with that song, they get paid. Wow. And everybody has their cut.
So how do
pretty crazy.
How do you see, like back, we're talking, many years ago, you'd have, your big groups and your big artists that are household names. Yep. How do you see what's going to happen to that? I mean, at the moment, I would say sort of the last, you've got like Ed Sheeran now as the latest days, those kind of artists. How do you see that changing? I mean, because there is a lot of music that's played on radio that we don't even know who the artist is. So, with the way things are going, I was just thinking about this only last night. Like, where's the next big artist coming from? How's that going to be recognised?
Well, it's very interesting is you're seeing them. I mean, if you look on YouTube, I'm blown away with some of the people, these kids and stuff that are growing up. You see them on YouTube. They're just extraordinary talents. Yeah. Right? Yeah, they're just incredible. It's just, it's like over the top. I mean, it's like you have to believe in reincarnation after you hear some of these kids because how do they even know how to do that?
It's like they've been here before.
It's like they've been here before. I mean, the old soul, the touch, the feel, the way they play the stuff that takes years as a musician to kind of figure out. They already have it. Yeah. So I think, the big artists, it's going to be on the independent side. Some of these new artists can be found and discovered. I mean, look at Justin Bieber. He was discovered on YouTube, right? That was his whole thing, doing cover songs. Yeah. So I think it's really gonna come from that. But I don't think it's going to be so much the labels that are going to find them and do that. It's going to be more about just these people that take off, build audience, and build this direct-to-consumer business. Right. Now, that's it. Labels do people that want to go and try to launch new artists. Which is very difficult today. It's very difficult. The first thing they look at, any label or anybody that wants to get behind it, they go look at your engagement. It's not how many followers you have. It's like, how much engagement are you getting? And the most important one now, which I hear, is Spotify plays, which is tough because you might have a big audience, and if you don't have enough Spotify plays, they're like, nobody's listening to your stuff. They don't care. Yeah. Right? Yeah. They're not paying attention. So to get attention, you've got to get, some millions of plays and, start have big audiences that are starting to follow you, and engagement rates that are like crazy. You see some of these people, they got engagement. They do a post and there's, thousands and thousands of likes and, hundreds of retweets or thousands of retweets and stuff. And they've built that relationship. And that's why I tell artists, don't go big. Start small, build that relationship between, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a commercial movement, right? And to create a commercial movement, you have to have a rally cry. You got to have something for people to get behind. So the idea is start small. Just keep building that audience. Find those super fans. Make sure you're dealing and just grow it
just
over
be
time.
Consistent.
Because remember, it's consistency. Yeah. And it's very interesting is, again, I have a friend that I play with a lot, and her name is Beebs. She goes as Beebs and the Moneymakers. I think she's actually coming over to Australia. I heard something about.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, she was on the Warp Tour this last two Warp Tours, and really good artist. And she was we were talking about this the other day, and she says it's very fascinating because she's real businessy, right? She's always doing gigs, and she's on top of it. She sells merch. She makes tie-dye clothes. She's got a whole process. But she says she makes most of her money, her year, off of about 150 people.
Right. Wow.
Only 150 people. These are fans that really support her. Right. And she's built relationships with them. They want to see her win. They buy her merch. They do all of that stuff. But she says that 150 people basically create my living. Yeah. It's like most of my money comes from that little group of people. So it's not about the massive size anymore because it's big. You got a lot of followers that kind of care. Are they buying your records or going and doing your stream? Maybe, they might like it, but it's really about that smaller group and then servicing that, that smaller crowd. So it's really about going small.
Yeah. And hope that somebody likes you.
And hope you gets lucky. Yeah. I mean, there's the hits game. Every once in a while you may get lucky and some song will hit, but it's, that's not how it works for the most part anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So, now, just one more question.
Sure.
You also used to, I don't know if you're still doing this, you play a role as a professor at the University of Southern California's Thornton School of Music. Yeah. Are you still doing that? Or
No, I actually did that one year. I lectured out there a handful of times, and they asked me to come. Would I come teach this thing at the school? And so I took one semester and I taught it, and it was very interesting for me because I was very surprised that so many of these kids had no curiosity and weren't really very motivated, and it kind of discouraged me, to be truthful. Right. And I decided I wouldn't do it again because I just didn't feel like that. It's just different. I get up every day and I work. Yeah. I'm 7/24, right? That's what it's about because I enjoy it. It's not because I love what I do, so it's not really like work. Yeah. But it takes that kind of curiosity and wanting, and I was just very surprised to see how most people, they were buried into their phones and didn't really care.
Yeah, look, this is funny. It's a huge problem now. It's just been on here just last night. They were talking about it. I think there's a show on tonight about how it's just ruining this next generation. They don't know how to interact with people. They don't know how to talk with people. And we kind of knew this was going to happen, and now it's it's happening. It's it's like I do have I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, and to get the 15-year-old motivated is tough. It's tough.
It's tough. It's just a different world.
It's like I don't know. I scratch my head going, but like when we were kids, we'd just do things. We would find what we like to do and would find what we love, and that's enough to motivate us.
Exactly. Yeah, it was so, as kids, when we were growing up, I remember it was so funny. I would get up in the morning, you know, I may be 11 years old or whatever, and 10 years old, and I'd say, see you, Mom, see you, Dad, boom, out the door, and I'll see you, and I'd show up at 7 o'clock for dinner. I'd be gone all day. They had no way to know where I was or doing what I was, and nobody even noticed. Nobody even cared.
Why can't my kids do that? Go outside.
I know, it's just like,
go
out,
somewhere,
play,
do
find
something.
stuff, go with your friends, ride your bikes, build forts, you know, whatever you can do, right?
It's almost like now they need to be told what to do. They need to be given a silver spoon in their mouths almost, or dragged along. You have to drag them along to introduce them to things instead of them finding ways themselves. And this is, you know, as a parent, I find that really...
It's got to be hard, these days, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look, you know what? I always have, usually, trying to have my 5 fun facts in 30 seconds.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Okay, hang on. Let me get my timer on. So now it's 30 seconds.
You're not going to make me look stupid, are you?
No. Of course not. No, they're easy
I'm just
questions. They're really easy.
It was so funny. I used to work with a very, very prominent, big-time CEO guy, and we'd have meetings, and there'd be all these people, but he was a math nut. Like, he loved math. He was like a crazy math. They had all these math tricks. So all the time, right in the meetings, all of a sudden you go, okay, Scott, here's a math question. And I'm like, okay, great. I couldn't figure it out ever. It's always felt goofy because he'd throw these questions out at me in the middle of nowhere. Like, okay.
Oh, dear. I'm like that with topics. I change my topics really quickly at home. It's like suddenly I'm talking about one thing and then everybody's going, what do you want about now?
That's me. I'm ADHD. Like, I'm over here, I'm left, I'm right. I bounce all over the place. So you and me will get along just fine.
I don't like boring.
No.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to set the timer on the first question. Okay, there's 5 questions, and you have to answer them in 30 seconds. So when you hear the timer go off, it's going to be a weird sounding timer, but when you hear that, it's over. Okay, here we go.
Oh, no.
5 fun facts. Favorite food?
Ooh, my favorite food. Let's see. Favorite foods. You know, I'm pretty not picky. I mean, I love sushi. I love to eat sushi. You know, I like Asian type foods. You know, I eat pretty much anything. And I am a sweet junkie, so I love ice cream.
Oh, okay. Favorite sport?
Yep.
You've got 5 seconds left.
Making music.
Okay, favorite place on earth?
My favorite place on the earth is right here, Los Angeles, California. I love it.
Oh, no. My timer's already gone off.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was 30 seconds per question.
Oh, no. Hang on. Let me stop that. I'm going to start again. Okay. Okay.
I didn't understand.
Stop?
Sorry, I goofed. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm going to pause it.
Okay.
Favorite place on Earth. Where was that?
I was going to say Los Angeles, California. I love it here.
Okay, great. All right. We're already over 30 seconds, but I'm going to continue.
Okay.
Favorite new music artist?
Shalita Burke, my friend that I love so much.
Oh, yeah, I thought
She's
that
so
when
good.
you were talking about her, actually. All right, here's a funny one. Some people might not like to answer this, but boxers or budgie smuggler?
Oh, I'm a combination. I kind of wear those ones that are a little tight. They're kind of boxery, but they're a little tight, so they kind of, they snuggle nicely.
I really wouldn't know. I just know one or the other. Oh, dear. Thank you very much. There are 5 fun facts. And, hey, for anybody who wants to know what Scott likes.
That's at least today. Tomorrow, if you told me, I'd probably give you a different answer. I like it all.
Okay, so look, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Okay.
So where can people find what you're doing? I'll put some links up there.
Yeah.
And
you can put up, just if they want to look a little bit on about Think EXP.
Yeah.
They can go to thinkexp.co.
Okay.
Not com, but .co.
Right.
.co. And it's just really small, but they can click on it and they can see what the Dome show is like. There's a couple videos and a few things, but there's not a lot on there, but that's a little bit.
Okay.
That's probably the best place. My social media is all IAM Scott Page.
Okay.
So it could be on
links
Twitter, yeah, all that stuff, Instagram, all that. And
Fantastic. Great. So they can also interact with you on social media?
Oh, yeah. I'm like, people DM me.
Okay.
I talk to people.
You heard
I like talking
guys?
to people. I talk to people.
Right.
I hang out, right?
All right. Fantastic. Look, Scott, thank you so much for such a great chat. It's been so great to talk to you. I wish I kind of lived closer so I could, it's a long way to swim. So
it is a long way to swim.
Yeah. It'd be great to see this, what you're doing. I'm quite fascinated. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go look at some links and you'll get an idea. Like if you go to thinkexp.co, there's that video there, promo video, and that'll give you a good idea of kind of what the experience is like so you can at least understand it.
Oh, fantastic.
and I have a question for you, being in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have a cane toad problem there?
Oh, yeah.
Still, huh?
Oh,
I got a great funny story on that one.
Really?
It is.
They've even tried coming up with ideas about people catching cane toads and paying them each time they deliver them, somewhat like a recycling centre. You know how if you recycle bottles, I don't know if you have that over there, but you get 10 cents.
We used to do that, yep.
Yeah.
So,
well,
sorry. I was going to say, I got a great cane toad story. All right, you ready? Real quick?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. We're in Australia with Pink Floyd.
Right.
And usually right before the shows, I forget where we were exactly. Where are the cane toads? Are they in Melbourne?
No, they're Queensland. Queensland.
Well, okay, so where we were, where there was a stadium, and we were outside where we played, and it was out sort of in the countryside in a sense. I don't know where that was. I can't remember which one. Yeah. So we do our sound check. After sound check, they're letting everybody in. So myself and one of the other guys decided to go take a walk. So we're walking around. It's kind of out in the woodsy area, and we come across this stream. And there's like all these toads, and there's tons of toads, and I'm like, holy crap! Look at all these toads, and they're stopped. They're like they're almost not alive or whatever, right? They're not moving. They're just standing there like. I'm looking, and so the guitar player guy goes and picks up a stick, and he goes to poke one, and I go, no, don't hurt it. Don't hurt this thing, because I'm Mr. Nature. I have
we need to get rid of them.
I have bug jars all over my house, right? So I don't hurt anything. I take spiders out. I redirect ants. I don't kill anything. I don't kill anything, right?
Okay.
So I go back to the dressing. We're going back to the dressing room. We're talking about, man, I've never seen so many toads. Oh my God, it's crazy. Look at these things. They're everywhere. I walk into the dressing room. There's Dave Gilmour, Nick, and everything. They're watching TV, and the TV's up on the sort of hanging from the on the wall on the top there. And I see this thing, and the guy's talking. It's like a news thing, and all of a sudden I see these toads. And I'm like, holy cow, you wouldn't believe all the toads. I'm listening to this guy, and he's going, and next thing this guy walks up with a golf club, and he goes, bam, and smacks that cane toad.
Yeah.
And flies it. And I'm going, holy cow, what is this? And I was all worried about poking one, right, with a stick.
People run them over and try and pop them.
They try to what them?
Run them over and try and pop them as well. But they haven't actually come down as far as Sydney. And although I think one has been spotted, and it's like, oh no, they're mainly in Queensland, so they're trying to isolate them and keep them, and you get rid of them as well.
Yeah,
big problem.
I was blown away with the story of how they got there. They brought that other predator to get rid of something over from Hawaii, I think they came from. And the next thing you know, they've created this natural disaster.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty cool. You're lucky you didn't come across any crocodiles on the stream.
No, I didn't see any crocodiles. No.
Oh, boy, that's great. Yep. I don't know what we're going to do about the cane toads, but people, you don't have to be careful with them.
Yeah, because they're poisonous, too. I hear dogs and kids get sick and all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah. And some of them are massive. They're huge.
Yeah, they're disgusting. I just don't like them. But I'm glad they're not down here in Sydney. I'm absolutely so glad about that.
Well, that's good.
Well,
excellent. Well, there you go.
There you go. Ending on
a little this. We had fun.
Thank you so much again. Great cane toad. Great. What is it? Cane toad. Oh my gosh.
Cane toad.
Great stories.
There you go.
Love chatting with you. And all the very best with this new venture that you're doing. It sounds absolutely amazing. If there are any artists in LA at the moment, go and check it out. Obviously, you'd have to. You just have to. And fans, obviously.
Yay.
Yeah, go for it. But
they can come too. Come on down. Yeah, we're doing it April 5th and 6th. We're April 5th and 6th, and then we're doing also the 26th and 27th of April, and then I think 15th and 16th in May. So
okay.
those are the next things. There you go.
I'll put those up as well on the site. Thank you. Yeah.
So get your plane tickets right away.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, you've got time to book. You've got time.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Scott. And
you're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Good luck with your show and your business ventures you're working on. Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Guest Talks with Tracy Arbon, bringing you special guest interviews from musictalks.xyz.